Hello and welcome to Fresh Thinking by Snowden Optiro. My name's Tarrant Elkington, General Manager for Snowden Optiro here in Perth. The topic of this podcast relates to the review of mineral resources, and it's going to be a two-part podcast. So in this first one, we're going to provide an overview, and then the second one, we're going to dive a bit deeper into some of the details on specific areas. So for this discussion, I'm joined by Susan Havlin, who manages our geology team here in Australia. Susan has over 20 years of experience in geology, mineral resources across operations and consulting in a range of commodities and regions, and has reviewed many resources in the past. So welcome, Susan.
Thank you.
Perhaps you could start by telling us a little bit about your experience and in reviewing resources.
I've been reviewing resources over the past 10 to 15 years in different capacities and on a whole range of commodities. The most common commodities that I review are gold, mineral sands and lithium, although I have done others including copper, iron ore, nickel and base metals.
So Suze, you've done quite a few resource reviews. What do you like about them?
Well, each one's different. They have all their own complexities, so it makes it really interesting to review them. Each commodity, I tend to focus on a different aspect. So for mineral sands, I'll concentrate more on the data, while gold, I'll look at more at the domaining and the validation. It also lets me see what the industry is up to and what they're doing on the different estimation techniques and domaining. I'm seeing a lot more non-linear approaches to estimation. I also love it because I love looking at areas of how to improve a resource. So it's not always about...
Find faults.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's also about opportunities.
Perfect. And so what purpose might there be for somebody to get their resource reviewed?
There's a whole range. Like some of it's for good governance. So for the larger companies, they like to do a mineral resource review so that they know that the numbers that they're about to release are correct, or the processes that they follow are the best processes at the moment. Also for like the smaller companies who are developing and maybe looking for finance, it helps to have a independent consultant look through your resource to make sure it's fair and appropriate. Other reasons we do them are there might have been an issue between a resource model and a grade control model, and the company's trying to figure out which is the more appropriate model. Smaller companies, it's also because they might only have one resource geo, so they don't have anyone to sort of bounce ideas off. So getting it reviewed by an independent person lets them know that they're on the right track. And finally, sometimes we're asked to be an independent CP, so we need to do a full resource review in that case.
Perfect. And so if we think about the resource review, what sort of things, what's involved in doing that?
So we basically look through all the processes which I'd run through to do a mineral resource. So we look at the data, QA/QC, the geological interpretation, geostatistical analysis. Then we do the resource estimation, density, classification, validation reporting, and finally RPEEE.
That's a long list of things, and I think in our second podcast we're going to step through each of those. Yep. And talk about the what you're looking for in each of those areas in particular. So look out for that one. And so when you're looking at all of these items that you look at in a resource review, what are some of the things you're trying to find or ascertain?
So there's basically three main things that we look for. Like one would be whether it's what we call a fatal flaw, as in this is something that would cause the whole project to fail. Second thing we look for is like a major issue, which is something that needs to be probably fixed straight away. And the last thing we look at is minor issues, which obviously is usually more a recommendation for future resources.
And as you say before, what we're trying to find is also the opportunities to improve. And when you think about what, I guess it also comes down to what makes a good resource, right? So what we're trying to find is the most accurate representation of the data or the deposit, right? It's not
Yeah.
it's not about it being bigger or smaller or whatever. It's the most accurate representation. Right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So, and then what's the typical typical outcomes from a mineral resource review? Do you often find these fatal flaws that we talk about, or the words get bandied around?
No, I mean, it's quite rare to find a fatal flaw. More likely, we find a few major issues or one or two major issues, but dominantly, we'll just find like little minor issues which we just make recommendations on.
So, Suze, if I was to wrap it up, I guess, with the resource review, the importance of it, you would generally get some list of improvements that you could have. You get assurance or otherwise that your resource is reasonable, and really you need that if you're going to declare numbers to the market, or if you're trying to purchase another asset. You know, the resource is the thing that underpins all the value of a mining asset, and so you've really just got to get it right.
Yeah.
So that additional diligence or governance step of doing that review is really, really important. So thanks, Suze, for joining us and explaining this to us. Please stay tuned for the next podcast where we dive into some of those individual items in a bit more detail to see the things that we're looking for in those areas as part of a resource review. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tarrant.
If you'd like to listen to more of our Fresh Thinking by Snowden Optiro podcasts, you'll find them free on our website, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and most other podcast platforms. If you'd like to discuss this in more detail with us, in looking at your particular situation, please reach out to us via our website. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can keep you up to date with our technical podcasts.